So today we're going to do something completely different than what we normally do, and we're going to review and give you the latest important information, plus go down a deeper rabbit hole on what, in my opinion, is absolutely the movie of the year, if not the decade. That movie, of course, being The Sound of Freedom.
I don't think I can do this job, Tim. As soon as I lay down, all I see are those kids' faces. How long you been doing this? 12 years. How do you do it?
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's going to pass the drug trade.
Señor Timoteo, tú rescatas niños, ¿verdad? Quizá puedas ayudarme a encontrar a mi hermana.
Now, before getting into it, if you like the shirt that I'm wearing for the theme of this video, you can get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com, and we're totally changing up formats. We usually talk about the news, we usually show you clips, but I've been so moved after watching this movie yesterday that I am dedicating this entire broadcast for that movie. It was an extremely gripping piece of entertainment that took you through a huge emotional roller coaster and then spit you back out with a sense of meaning, anger, and frustration towards the current world that we're living in that's trying to normalize a lot of the monstrous behavior that has been depicted in the movie. Now, before getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff, before even getting into some of my criticisms of the movie, I do want to say that there will be no spoiler alerts until the very end of this video, which I will, of course, give you a lot of warnings to. So if you haven't watched the movie, you could still watch this video and get some larger context here, which I think is critically important to understand, especially after all the attacks on this movie and how Hollywood and probably Washington, D.C. have been trying to shun it away from everyone when it's literally about one of the most important issues that I think we should be talking about today. And I think it's fair to assume that a lot of the detractors, a lot of the attackers, a lot of the people that don't want this movie to be seen probably have a lot of skeletons in their closet, to say the least. And as IndieWire is reporting, quote, The Sound of Freedom is cleaning up the box offices right now because you could buy tickets for strangers, and it's definitely a lot more than just that. We're going to tell you how people are buying tickets for each other in just a little bit, but the movie has grossed $14.2 million as of July 4th, as more and more people are starting to see it, as of course viral marketing is becoming the key way that's creating a wildfire-like effect, as many people organically are recommending their friends and family members see this movie. And in the movie theater that I was in, it was jam-packed. It was very hard to get a ticket, even though I was seeing the movie 3 p.m. on a Saturday. I actually had a friend call me up and be like, hey, you actually have to go see this movie with me. I remember even a couple days ago seeing a couple comments saying you're a shill and totally controlled opposition because you're not talking about this movie. But the one thing that has gotten me hooked and actually wanting to see this movie is, of course, all the attacks on it by the establishment corporate media institutions like The Guardian, The Rolling Stones, Washington Post, Vice, Media Matters, that have all outright attacked this movie in some very disingenuous, dishonest ways. The Washington Post said that this movie is linked to QAnon somehow. The Guardian wrote a salacious headline saying, quote, Sound of Freedom, the QAnon-adjacent thriller seducing America, with Rolling Stone outdoing themselves with a review of the movie saying, quote, the QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer. What? What is that even supposed to mean? And after watching the movie, there was nothing related to QAnon or even a government-related conspiracy. There was none of that in there. I was honestly expecting some of it to be in there based on the criticisms of it. I'm like, okay, wow, a mainline Hollywood movie where we could actually get an insight on some of the inner workings of some of the true events of some of the real children that were hurt here by our tax dollars. I was curious about this, and there was none of that in there. The main events that happened in this movie happened in places like Tijuana, Cartagena, Colombia, and they talked about things that happened also in Bangkok that had nothing to do with any kind of government-related conspiracy, but talked about low-level drug traffickers and human traffickers that were involved in the exploitation and the hurting of small children. And very surprisingly, it was a government agent that this whole story is based on that actually went out of his way and actually saved children. Yes, you heard that correctly. An effective government agent. You never see that, especially at the DMV. It's like a unicorn. As the movie highlights real-life events based on the true story of Tim Ballard, a former Homeland Security agent that went after human traffickers while working for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, which was depicted in a favorable light in this movie. As you saw, the boss of Tim Ballard actually go out of his way to try to actually help Tim by skirting a lot of the rules and regulations surrounding the duties of Homeland Security, which, by the way, have now changed in order to help individuals like Tim stop other human traffickers. So the premise by the corporate media here is absolutely laughable and extremely concerning, since this is a real-life film about real-life events, real-life children that were rescued here, that for some reason the corporate media does not want you watching, knowing about, or even caring about. And they're disingenuously now mocking and attacking individuals who do. This, as one of the authors of this piece for the Rolling Stone that disingenuously attacked this movie, just locked down their Twitter account, as he called this film a movie for dads with, quote, brainworms, calling the movie disgusting. And in my opinion, all of these authors from the corporate media should absolutely be ashamed of themselves, and they do deserve to be criticized for their horrible takes here. Now, also, very surprisingly, a lot of the kind of Hollywood establishment institutions and celebrities aren't really talking about this movie, as well as, of course, it's dominating box offices. It has absolutely obliterated the woke, utter destruction of the male character type, the ESG favorable Indiana Jones film, which I hear a lot of people calling a piece of crap that supports the message, as, of course, the critical drinker always puts it. And this movie didn't have any of the message and was a refreshing watch, as finally a main character who was a white male here wasn't treated like an utter buffoon, idiot, or evil villain that was overcompensating or trying to destroy other people's life just for being different. This movie didn't have any of the woke crap, any of the ESG crap that you see time and time again in almost every single movie that tries to sit you down and lecture you or brainwash you about their radical leftist causes. And finally, being able to sit in a movie theater and not be talked down to, not to be patronized, not to be treated like an idiot, like a buffoon, with directors and actors that actually cared about a storyline, that made a movie entertaining for the individual, that could finally let their guard down against the multiple psyopses and psychological subliminal brainwashing campaigns, was refreshing. Even though many times throughout the movie, I had to stop myself from crying. I went to see the movie with 3 of my female friends. All of them were crying during this movie. I looked around, half of the theater was crying, and honestly, majority of the time watching this movie, I was holding myself back from crying myself because of the emotional roller coaster that this movie puts you on in a genuine, honest way, based on real-life events that are gripping and of critical importance. And after watching this movie, it gives you a fresh perspective to how vile and how evil our institutions are, that are either trying to prevent this movie from getting out there or trying to make sure that you don't see it. As, of course, at the end of the movie, we are told that this movie was actually made 5 years ago and that there was everything done by very powerful institutions to try to prevent it from going to theaters. I would definitely recommend people wait until the end credits, as of course there's a very important message afterwards that allows people to buy tickets for each other. And if you're in a financial tough spot, check out their website, which we're going to link down in the description below, where you could get your own pair of tickets and go see the movie for free based off someone else gifting you those tickets. I'm personally going to be gifting a lot of my family members and friends these tickets. Dana White of the UFC also recommends that everyone go watch this movie, and he even donated tickets to the entire staff of the UFC to go see this movie. This, as we have also seen other individuals like Mel Gibson and Tony Robbins, who is the executive producer of this movie, come out on social media and recommend that you see it. All of those individuals, by the way, heavily criticized by the establishment and the corporate media, and have been previously very outspoken against the agenda and the message. highlighting how it's a lot of people kicked out of Hollywood and that have been arbitrarily punished, lied about in the general public that are promoting this movie, which I bet you will not be winning any kind of Hollywood establishment awards, will not be recommended by any mainline publications, and is a mainly underground movie that is breaking through the surface of the establishment and wreaking havoc on its tight grip of control over mainline entertainment and society. This is what Mel Gibson had to say about this movie a few days ago, and I would have to agree with him on his sentiments here.
One of the most disturbing problems in our world today is human trafficking, and particularly the trafficking of children. Now, the first step in eradicating this crime is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
Now, after analyzing everything, I think it's fair to say that the establishment is irked here, as of course it's important to note here that there are a lot of key members of powerful institutions and the, quote, establishment and corporate media that have been trying to normalize and excuse some of the very horrible behavior that has been described and shown here in this particular movie that it exposes. This, as even major police organizations in Scotland are coming out with the term minor attracted people. The corporate media, in many instances, has used this term trying to excuse just monstrous, horrible behaviors. The United Nations has even played a key role here, trying to recommend children to be used by adults for their own unspeakable behavior, as there are a lot of voices in our mainline society trying to normalize hurting small children in unspeakable ways. And I could show you article after article that we're showing you on screen right now of individuals that were caught, or individuals a part of major institutions trying to excuse and push a narrative that it is somehow okay for children to consent to adult behaviors. And the movie Sound of Freedom definitely highlights a lot of the grotesque activities that a lot of people are trying to normalize in our mainline society, as there is a major marketing, rebranding effort trying to excuse this behavior, which is absolutely inexcusable in my own personal opinion. Again, time and time again, these articles, these people, and these individuals are just touching the surface here, which leads me to my first criticism of this movie, as of course, all the scuttlebutt around it, all the criticisms, all the attacks by the media against them made me think that we were going to see some of the bigger players that are involved here in this very nefarious, horrible activity, and there was none of that. The movie predominantly focused on low-level gangs, specifically in Cartagena, specifically in Mexico, specifically in Tijuana, when we do know that there are a lot of powerful institutions like the FBI and the Department of Justice that have had a major role in these activities that they were never held responsible for, and in many instances caught either just obstructing justice or willingly participating in a cover-up. And whether it's Larry Nassar, a case where the FBI allowed more victims to be made here, whether it's the royal family and their overwhelming connections to, quote, minor attracted individuals, with even the former British Prime Minister being one of them, with individuals like Jimmy Savile getting away with horrible actions that we can't even dare describe here or even try to allude to in this particular broadcast. Whether it was Dennis Hassert, the former Speaker of the House, whether it's the Finders, whether it's the Franklin cover-up in 1988, whether it's the Catholic Church that knowingly moved around child predators all throughout the world, covering up and hiding their disgusting behavior, or whether it's, of course, Mr. Epstein, the story of the decade, where it has been documented for more than 3 decades. The FBI knew and were interviewing victims of and absolutely did nothing to stop, while prosecutors, judges, and police officers looked the other way when countless numbers of victims were coming to them. All of these cases are something that we should be having a rational, real conversation about, but of course, social media algorithms, the corporate media, and powerful individuals that are implicated here are preventing us from having it. This movie, The Sound of Freedom, finally cracks a little bit away at this huge freaking iceberg that gets a lot bigger when you look underneath and see the true size and scale of so many innocent children being hurt by powerful individuals that in some instances were using your own tax dollars in order to traffic, hurt, and abuse small children in this country. And whether it's Bill Gates, Chris Rock, Richard Branson, Bill Clinton, Woody Allen, they all have connections to a man that openly bragged how a fellow trafficker, Jean-Luc Bernet, provided thousands thousands of small children to, of course, powerful people to do whatever they wanted to do with. This is, of course, a story that's very personal to us since we've been talking about this issue when the corporate media was still promoting Epstein as an entrepreneur and philanthropist. We're also, of course, the independent media organization that stormed his island after he allegedly took his own life. Allegedly, to say the least. As, of course, the FBI here has absolutely fumbled the ball, as, of course, they didn't even search a lot of his properties. Particularly, they didn't even look into the property in New Mexico, which still hasn't been searched or investigated. The tapes, the photos, and videos of powerful individuals that Mr. Epstein had on surveillance in his mansions, that they were doing really horrible things to the children that they smuggled in here, just magically went missing. As, of course, Jean-Luc Bernet and Mr. Epstein just, mysteriously decided to take their own lives in prison with surveillance cameras that mysteriously just stopped working in both cases. Yeah, totally open and shut case here. The U.S. government just recently released a report saying nothing to see here, all a major coincidences of coincidences compiling together to have this absolutely illogical story that doesn't make any sense at all. The Sound of Freedom didn't get into any of that, but it at least opened people's eyes to what's happening, as, of course, worldwide, millions of children are being trafficked, and there's an entire huge industry behind it that's way bigger, way more interlinked than people would even understand from the Sound of Freedom. Now, before getting into some of the spoiler alerts, if you want to support our work here as independent media and some of the crazy adventures that we have been on, you can, just by going to thebestpoliticalshirts.com and getting a shirt like the one that I'm wearing right now. We just released another shirt this week that I think is definitely attention-grabbing as well. It shows you if you're single, or if you're taken, or if you're resisting the blank corporatist banking cabal with memes and thought crimes. That blank and blank, you could infer to what it exactly means, but it's going to be a pretty good shirt to wear at parties to let your potential mates know exactly where you stand. That shirt was just dropped this week. And we have a lot of shirts that definitely will provoke some interesting conversations, will allow people to think, and allow you to do lazy forms of activism. As, of course, there's a lot of things in our mainline society that deserve to be ridiculed, that deserve to be questioned, and there's a lot of thoughts and ideas that you could express just by simply wearing a t-shirt. Some of those shirts we cannot even show you here on this broadcast, so to see the shirts that you're not allowed to see here, go to thebestpoliticalshirts.com, as, of course, we have a lot of them. We are the best in the game when it comes to, of course, t-shirts and merchandise. There's no one better. Name one person doing a better job when it comes to, of course, provoking ideas through shirts in this independent media sphere. There's no one. Thebestpoliticalshirts.com is where to go. Go there right now. Click the link down in the description below and support this independent media organizations by picking up a t-shirt. We have women's shirts. We have tank tops. We have hoodies. You name it. We got it all available to you on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. See you there right after this broadcast, which now will leave me to some of the spoiler alerts for this particular movie. As, of course, if you already watched it, you have nothing to worry about. If you haven't watched it, this is where you would pretty much turn off the video. By the way, here is the QR code if you want to buy this movie for anyone else. I'm going to buy this movie for my friends and family members so they go out and see it. If you want to do the same, just use this QR code, and you could do that right now by scanning it on your cell phone. But as far as the spoiler alerts, again, my main disappointment with the film is it didn't go deep enough. It was just kind of very surface level, but for it to still get criticized when it's still just such a surface level film talking about these issues in such a direct way is very telling, to say the least. My other criticism is that at the end of this movie, there was another kind of action scene, and it felt a little bit too much. It felt like they were just adding a little bit too much of grandiose, too much of unbelievability, and there has been some aspects of this movie that were exaggerated, especially when it comes to gunfire, running away, getting shot at, that just doesn't seem realistic, and I don't think are realistic based on the events that I've been learning about and listening to, especially when learning about the true real-life individual behind this story, who, in my opinion, is an absolute freaking hero. I'm going to be currently working on trying to interview him for this particular YouTube channel. the actors, maybe the producer. I don't know. I'm going to try to get this video out as much as I can, not because there's any kind of profit motive. I'm not working with the film. I'm not working with any individuals here, but because watching the movie is extremely gut-wrenching. It is extremely heavy. And if you deal with anxiety, it's something that you might want to personally consider. Maybe grabbing some ashwagandha or chill pills before you do. Again, cheap plug. I'm not going to do that. Seriously, it is very gut-wrenching. It is very emotional. It is very just in your face, doesn't shy away from a lot of the controversial issues. And it is something that is very heavy to deal with. And because of that emotional reaction, this is why I'm like, I'm not even going to do a news report today. This is why I'm going to talk about this. But other than my little small criticisms of this, I thought it was a masterpiece. I thought the acting was incredible. The storyline, the individuals actually cared in telling a good, compelling story rather than, of course, virtue signaling and all the bull crap that, of course, they're just trying to shove down your throat, a part of the message. So that was my only real kind of criticism of it, and again, this movie grips you in, especially from the very beginning, as you're kind of thinking, "Holy cow! Is the main actor here? Is the main person here behind the story actually someone who is a part of a larger conspiracy here, trying to hurt other children with the main villain that was first introduced here?" It kind of leaves you questioning and wondering where the story's going to go, and I love that being able to see a movie like that, and overall. Except for the last action scene, I thought they should have ended this whole movie at the end of the major operation where they saved 50 children in Cartagena. The whole jungle scene was just a little bit too much for my own personal preferences. But other than that, just a perfect movie, 9.7 out of 10. An incredible movie, a must-watch. Seriously, I don't get paid to do this. There's no sponsorships behind this. I truly was impacted by this emotionally. I think you will be too. And because the establishment doesn't want you to watch it, go watch it right now. Check it out and give a middle finger to all these horrible monsters out there that are trying to justify the hurting of small children. That's my take on it. What do you think? What rating do you give the movie out of 10? Let me know down in the comment section below. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys actively supporting independent media by getting a t-shirt, sharing this video with your friends and family members, which I think is critically important since we did a way bigger, deeper dive into some critically important issues that, of course, a lot of other people haven't connected the dots on. If you find that important, share this video with your friends and family members. Make it go viral, just like the movie. And because you do that, because you share this message, because you share these videos, that's why I am still here and wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And that's why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.